Welcome back to Switch to Linux. We have another fun Ubuntu article this week. I promise not everything Ubuntu is doing is horrible, but they just seem to be going more and more corporate. And as a Linux distribution starts going more and more corporate, they tend to start losing out on the reasons why a lot of the people chose to go with them to begin with. Of course, we're talking today about Ubuntu dropping Flatpak support for its flavors. This is really funny because most Linux distributions are trying to do the best that they can of providing the most ability, the most accessible ways of installing software. There's some of them we looked at vanilla recently that you can do RPMs, you can do debs, you can do anything from the AUR, you got Flatpaks, you got snaps, you got app images, you got it all. And many distributions like Manjaro takes the best overall approach in their modifications of Pamuk, in that you can boot up Pamuk and you can say, yeah, I hate snaps, toggle the button off, and you'll never see snaps. Now, snap support is still there, and, Snapd is still installed. It's, I have Pamuk installed on my Endeavor OS, and it, as a dependency now, comes with Snapd, which is kind of annoying, but I'm like, whatever. I don't use snaps. I actually have it disabled in there, but Snapd is still installed, which is, in my opinion, a little annoying. However, I think Manjaro does it best with those modifications to Pamuk in that you have the ability to toggle it off. Then Flatpak, you can toggle it on, toggle it off. If they're on and you do a search for software, you're going to get the Flatpak option, you're going to get the snap option, you're going to get the repo option, you'll get the AUR option if that's turned on in Manjaro. So you have a lot of different ways, but if you don't like those systems, you just turn them off and you'll never see them showing up in your repository or your software searches on Pamuk. But Ubuntu seems to be going the backwards direction of everybody else. They are actually dropping support for Flatpak. Now, what does this mean? It simply means that the package Flatpak is not installed. They're not blocking Flatpak like Mint did to snaps. That's, of course, a separate thing. Let's mention it here since it's relevant. What Linux Mint did is they blocked snaps from even installing. The reason they did this is because Ubuntu was taking regular packages that you would expect to install a repository version, and when you did a sudo apt install Firefox was the first package, it would check if Snap was installed, and if you did not have Snap installed, it would install Snapd, and then it would install the Snap version of Firefox. So the first iteration around did cause a lot of controversy. They simply blocked Firefox from being installed rather than package something and then installed a dummy package saying why they did this. Well, that was stupid. But they've since fixed that. They are now packaging Firefox in their repository, and they block Snap. The reason Mint blocks Snap, which is not what Ubuntu is doing, is because what they've recognized is that Ubuntu as its core is becoming over-aggressive in moving more and more software packages to Snap versions through the apt command. And so, what I'm seeing here is that Linux Mint says, we are still going to give you the option, but we're going to prevent Snap from installing itself unless you explicitly install it. So any package that will install through the apt command, install Snap, and then install the Snap version, effectively Linux Mint has blocked those. But all of those packages that have been done, they have been packaging in the repository. If you want Snap support, they provide clear instructions for how to enable it. Now, this is different from what Ubuntu is doing. So what Ubuntu is doing here is, as part of its flavors program to be listed as an official flavor, so we're talking about Kubuntu, Xubuntu, Ubuntu Budgie. Is that one? I think that was just Ubuntu Budgie. I forget off the top. Of course, they have the brand new Unity version, which is a flavor. Some of these, like particularly, if I remember correctly, Ubuntu Mate, that one used Flatpak support, but in all future versions, as of the upcoming release version of Ubuntu, you cannot, as a flavor, officially support Flatpak because they're trying to push snaps everywhere. So from It's Foss News, snapped! Ubuntu cracks down on default Flatpak support for its flavors. Ubuntu flavors will no longer include Flatpak support out of the box. Why? Let's find out. Now, before we dive into the article here, we have to understand that all that Flatpak support is going to mean is sudo apt install Flatpak. That's all you need. So it's not like it's huge. They're not blocking it like Mint did. Now, why would Mint blocking it be a fine thing and Ubuntu doing this is a little bit different? Because what Mint did is preventing you from installing something you think is a repository package from installing a proprietary store and then installing the app through that proprietary store. Whereas there is no Flatpak that if you go to install the software is going to behind your back install Flatpak support and install the Flatpak. That's why it's a little bit different in this case. Now, so what they're doing is they're pushing their snaps. Some people love it, as we mentioned in one of my previous videos. Some people absolutely hate it. And I really think that when we have a situation where you don't like a certain type of package, you don't like the way it's done, to be able to sidestep that and say, no, I don't want that is an appropriate thing, and that's what drives a lot of people to Linux. But Ubuntu is trying to push snaps so far down people's throats that they're failing to maintain other long-standing applications and trying to get everybody to put their applications into the fully packaged snaps. The biggest problem with that is that snaps are distributed through a proprietary methodology, through a central point, which means surveillance, fingerprinting, and other such things. Now, so Ubuntu Mate included Flatpak support by default, the article says. Not to forget, this was one of the factors that gave Flatpak an edge over Snap. Unfortunately, that will change with Canonical's recent announcement. Ubuntu flavors will no longer offer Flatpak support out of the box. This change will occur with the next release, which is 2304, the Lunar Lobster. And with how crazy Ubuntu's going, I'm going to propose a name for this. I'm going to call it the Looney Lobster instead, because Ubuntu is losing its mind. Okay, fret not, it can still be manual installed. Very simple, sudo apt install Flatpak. No big deal. Yeah, I got that right. It's like I use so many different package managers. Do I get that one right? All right. So why drop it? The announcement explains the reasoning behind it. When a new package technology is provided by default, there is an expectation that the distribution provides community support and it is invested in contributing to the development to resolve the issues. This creates fragmentation instead of focusing on improving the technology. So Ubuntu is saying we don't really want to support the Flatpaks, so we're not going to allow it to be installed by default so that people will not have a problem with Flatpak, come to the Canonical forums, and then ask their questions and be told, use Snap instead. It's kind of like Apple, right? I need to do this, this, and this. Why don't you do this instead? Because I don't want to. All right. To maintain this focus while also providing user choice, Ubuntu and its flavors consider debs and snaps to be the default experience, which in my opinion is why many people are turning away, because have you experienced using snaps? Some people in my comments have said that the snap versions of some applications are working better. I have had issues with Flatpak on Endeavor with the Element client, for example. I had to remove the Flatpak version because it kept on crashing. However, I've run many other Flatpaks and have never had an issue. Snaps, sometimes they're fast, sometimes they're slow. One of the biggest criticisms people had, if you go to like your disks manager and look at it, every Snap application adds a separate loop drive, which starts cluttering up the OS. But that's a different conversation for another day. To maintain this focus while also providing user choice, Ubuntu and its flavors consider debs the default experience. They have the freedom and choice how they get their software, including Flatpak. A way to install these alternatives is and will continue to be available. So ultimately what they are saying is that you can still use it. We do not want them to have it so that people turn to snaps instead of Flatpaks for not only Ubuntu, but all of the official flavors of Ubuntu. So the thoughts on the flavors for the first part, what technical benefit does this decision provide for the flavors? It would be immediately useful if they addressed more about it in the announcement. If enabling Flatpak out of the box was a bad idea, why did some Ubuntu flavors decide to include it in the first place? Well, some of them prefer that many users prefer Flatpak. Some people might be like, if I have to do extra steps, I'm just going to find another distro. I don't know. If you really like Ubuntu Mate, for example, and you want the Flatpak support, sudo apt install Flatpak. Not a big deal. I don't see this as a huge thing. I do see it as kind of a weird thing that's going to turn off another portion of the users. But overall, that is really what the story is. So my overall thoughts, it sounds to me like whereas most Linux distributions are going to have a model which has the more overall software available, Ubuntu is going backwards and saying, no, we want you to do it our way. We're not blocking you from doing something else, but I do understand where they say, okay, this is about community support. Okay, I understand that. And with that perspective in mind, I get it when they say, yeah, it's all about the support. We do not want to officially support other people's distributions or other people's different software packaging. And so it's going to free up time on our forums or people reaching out to us to solve the problems. But on the other hand, it comes off as looking like a negative. It comes off as Ubuntu moving even more corporate, even more proprietary, even more in the opposite direction as to why most people came to Linux in the first place. And so I think that this is probably a bad idea overall, but who's to say what's going to happen? So we'll keep an eye on this and see what is going to happen down the road. Let me know your thoughts about all this in the comments down below. Thank you for watching this video from Switched to Linux. This channel would not be possible without the backing of the program supporters scrolling on the screen now. You can be a supporter at Patreon at patreon.com/TOMM or at thinklifemedia.com. I also want to thank the open source community who creates such excellent software that makes producing this show possible. Please remember to support your software communities. Thank you, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.